Hey, everybody, I don't know about you, but as you've watched out over the world, the war in Russia and Ukraine is not just isolated to Eastern Europe. It's spread all over the world, and you can see it in market instabilities. You can see it here. People who do not think that that war is affecting you, all you got to do is look at gas prices. You look at your food prices. You see the global change that has happened. But you know something that's also affected investments as well. And I've said all along, legacy precious metals is your navigator. They're the ones that see you through to get to the next level. The good news about this is even with market volatility, market instability, you've got options. And gold prices are rising as investors turn to gold. And gold presents a hedge against this inflation and that protects you against the weakening dollar, which we are seeing. Legacy Precious Metals is the only company I trust to deal with gold and silver and the other precious metals. You need this investment. You need this as part of your portfolio to keep you buffered from what we're seeing in the world, war and volatility in the market. This is where you need to be. Call Legacy Precious Metals today. Be proactive about this. Get on board with it. Call them at 866-528-1903, 866-528-1903, or you can download their free investor's guide at legacypminvestments.com. legacypminvestments.com, your navigator in a volatile world of investments.
Do you want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it?
The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered, and this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't gonna be that fun.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Today's random topic day. We do this a lot. It lets me catch up with you on just topics that are going on. Maybe not at this point. Some may turn into full-blown podcasts. I'll dive into them deeper. Some of them just need a good hot take. We're going to do some hot takes today on some things that are going on that, you know, frankly, as you look at them, they bother you and you begin to look at in different ways. I'm going to start off with one that probably you're going to be on one side or the other of this. It doesn't matter which way I go, and that's going to be the Brittany Griner situation. And the Whalen situation, this whole hostage deal, the negotiation in which we let go a known arms dealer for Brittany Griner. What is interesting to me is, and I know it's and let me just start off with a few points. And I'll go back and fully acknowledge that Paul Whalen was in custody in the Soviet Union during Trump's administration. He's been in custody in Biden administration. Trump did not choose to make the deal that was just made for him. Let it go and nothing happened. There were other dynamics going on at play there. And now you've had the dynamic in which Biden and the Biden administration made the deal to get Brittany Griner out. I think the problem that puts most people with this deal is that, you know, and I've seen it as the WNBA player versus the Marine or the others. And granted, there's issues on both of these cases. And he was Whalen was not a Marine, and is not a Marine now. He was a former Marine who was actually dishonorably discharged from the Marines. But again, he's an American, and I think that's the first most point that needs to be made here. Number two, Griner is a superstar. Her topic was on the news almost every time you turn on ESPN, every time you watched a sports broadcast, every time it came on about something about WNBA, Brittany Griner's name came up, which made in the minds of a lot of people that this was getting special attention that a normal person like a Whalen was not getting. Okay? This is the concern that a lot of people are having. It's not just simply what is going on around the issue in this, this prisoner swap. It is the issue that has been going on in the U.S. about people feeling that justice is, there's a two-tiered justice system going on. And with a two-tiered justice system going on, it means that folks like, you and I or others are not getting the same treatment as those who either have money or they have access or power into being able to do this. So again, I think we're looking at this through the lens of, the process of why these two individuals, and by the way, there are others that are being kept in other countries. How did this actually happen? Just some thoughts here. Number one, I do believe her case got higher attention. She was a profile athlete who was a spokesman for not only the WNBA, but the LGBTQ community, others. She was a basketball player. She's, again, all the things that you would see in this administration that would keep this on the hot burner. And she was also the topic of every conversation, like I said earlier, in these sports television. Paul Whelan was not. He's been there. He's made the news occasionally. And if it wasn't for his family and for others that occasionally mentioned him, most people would never know he was there. Again, two different scenarios. Why does one American who happens to be high profile and the other American both on basically sham charges? Now, the interesting part is, to me, Paul is put there for spying and espionage, okay? Again, he said there was nothing going on. The family said nothing going on. The lawyer just said nothing going on. Fine. Griner, they found with CBD oil, okay, for the vape. Again, shouldn't have been kept, shouldn't have been hindered, but there was this issue with this. And what's interesting is I've never heard this. I don't know this. I'm just simply speculating. I wonder if this was the very first time she had ever brought it in, because she had been playing in Russia back and forth for a number of years. The interesting part about this further is that Putin understood the leverage that this was going to take. Remember, she was taken right before the Ukraine invasion by Putin. The leverage that this allowed Putin to continue to have on the United States and the Biden administration was continued heavy. They knew how to play it. He knew how to play this. Look, Putin is a bad individual. He is one that is not trusted. He's OKGB. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've said this. Putin is one that is just not somebody that the United States can trust or deal with. And right now, though, he is in control of nuclear Russia. He's in control of a country that has decided to, attack its neighbors. And we can talk about that one all day long, which we have before. But the interesting part here for me is what and I know this will come out in time. And as we're sitting here just sort of talking about it on the podcast, at what point did the decision get made that we'll have to get Griner home, and this is the only deal we can make, and Whelan will just have to go back to again? At what point was the decision made for the choice became, and I think Putin understood this completely, because undoubtedly they offered nothing else for Whelan at the time, is we'll get back Victor Bout, who is the arms dealer, and we'll use Brittany Griner in this process. Again, because I think they knew that under this administration, under this White House, that this community and the sports community and the superstar status and the on and on and on, add on, wherever you want to add on, was going to put enough pressure on this White House to make sure that the leverage was enough that they would get what they wanted, and they ended up getting Victor Bout. Now, most people will tell you, at least I've read in the reports that I've read, both in news and talking to people, is that Bout will be back at it. The information that he has, the storage, that everything that he has is stuff that will be back in play, very quickly. I wish the best for Brittany Griner coming home. I wish the best for her family, and I'm glad she's home. But this brings to mind, again, a little bit of the understanding that why people in this country feel like that there's two standards of justice. When you see what's happening, from a conservative perspective, you see it with conservative, from the former president, President Trump, to his businesses, to other, and now we're seeing from the Twitter gate files, we're seeing everything come out. And yet we're seeing on the other side, the Comeys, the Strucks, the Bakers, James Baker, who ended up at Twitter after leaving the FBI and Department of Justice, are just treated seemingly completely different from Clinton on down. This is why I think this story resonates so much. This is why I think this story also is going to be problematic going forward, and not only for just this negotiation, but for others for this administration. But I'm also going to allow it another one. I think that is what I've said before, especially in regards to Russia, I think they made a conscious decision that this would be a leverage point, that they could get something for what they want, mainly because what they've seen in the administration so far. And again, going back to Afghanistan being one of those primary areas that we have saw and that the world saw that America's resolve did not match its rhetoric. So again, as you look at this Griner situation, as you're thinking about it, I know there's been a lot of hot takes on, why do we leave one? We picked one of the, that's the feelings you're feeling, folks. And if you're on the left or you're in the news media and you don't understand why this is not playing well, it goes back to not this necessarily just this prisoner swap. It goes back to the fact that people see this as too steer of justice. They see it as a rich or wealthy basketball player who's very well known and very known in the communities against someone who is not, and felt that she got different treatment. 10 months out of 4 years, that's why we see it. Moving on, one of the issues that I think brought up the Griner situation that I think actually will play in this was the Afghanistan withdrawal. Now, I'm going to go backwards in time, and I don't like to typically do this. I'm not one to dwell going backwards, but I am one to learn from history. And also, if an occasional "I told you so" is needed, then I think there's a lot of us out here who said this was going to happen. Bring you back to last July, August. We saw this coming. We saw the Taliban and others making their way through Afghanistan. We saw the Joe Biden earlier last year make the call that we were going to be completely out by September 11th, 2021, the 20th year anniversary of 9/11. And really made no qualifications on it. He said, we're just simply going to be gone. During that time, we saw the Taliban begin to make their way back across country. We saw the Afghan army, which was supposedly very well trained, which it was not, which we put a lot of money into. We gave $70 billion in equipment, which was the Afghan army, which is interesting to say. It's the discussion is that was left by us. Well, it was not left by us. We had already given it to that army, to the Afghans. What we found out was they didn't know how to use it and couldn't use it. So maybe we should have destroyed most of it before we left instead of letting it go into the Taliban hands. Again, different topic, different podcast, but I think these are the things that we see on the run. One of the things that we saw, even as they closed on Kabul, as we dropped out of the Bagram Air Base, as we came back into Kabul, we saw the loss of life in American military that was over there trying to get out people. We saw people getting out that shouldn't have got out. We saw people that should have been got out, got left. Again, just a complete debacle. What is often missed in this was the discussion by many of us who were saying this is the Taliban coming back to strength even stronger than they were before 2001, in which they were a haven, and we're already seeing this again. We were a haven for terrorist organizations. They were terrorists for Al-Qaeda, haven for ISIS. We saw this happening over and over and over again. Here's what bothers me, and we were beginning to see it over the year. We were told by the Biden administration that we will use all diplomatic realms and we'll do everything we can to make sure that they live up to the norms of the world society. Well, where's that pressure? I mean, it doesn't seem to be applying. I understand it's not easy. I'm not saying that Joe Biden can wave a magic wand and make the Taliban in Afghanistan do anything he wants. I mean, he's already gave up all that leverage. I get it. But it's also worth noting for all of those who say, well, this was happening or Trump was doing the same thing, and history will bear out Trump was not doing the same thing. We've had John Ratcliffe, former director of national intelligence, on this podcast, who have said, no, there were definite markers put into the deals with the Taliban that said, if you do X, then we're not going to remove the remaining troops. I mean, there was always this process there. At the end of the day, the concern was Afghanistan going backwards. And in the term of a little over a year, that's exactly what had happened. For the first little bit, they played relatively nice. They only killed some people. They killed political opponents. They started, trying to get everything settled in. Now the country is going backwards. They're having trouble feeding themselves. They're having trouble economically. And now the Sharia law is back. The Taliban is back in place, which is what we said was going to happen. It started in increments. Young girls not being able to go to school, women not being able to work outside the home. And then it progressed into women will not be able to travel without their someone in their family with them. We're starting seeing burqa being worn again. And now we're starting to see publicly reported the executions and the maimings are taking place again. I am not one to say that we need to be in a perpetual state of war. In fact, I'm not. As someone who's been in Iraq, who's someone who has looked at this and sees the effect on our military still to this day, we don't need to be. But folks, we have been in multiple countries for 50 plus years, 60 plus years. And remember, before the August of last year, we had not lost an American military member in 18 months in Afghanistan. I want you to think about that a second. But yet the country was at least able to survive, and women, young children, education, other things were at least being able to move around. Now they're not. And over the past week, it became very concerning to me when I saw reports that now publicly the executions are back. Someone was executed recently in a public arena, public executions for murder. He was accused of murder, and the Taliban allowed the victim's family to perform the execution. We saw those who have been caught, I'm assuming for stealing, and other things have had their hands cut off. We've seen the reports of feet. This is happening on a regular basis, and they do so in the public domain. They do it to scare people. They do it. I was watching a documentary on Netflix just the other day about pre 9/11 Taliban, and it was, and some of the Taliban who were still in power, some of these folks, we're talking about how this was just a grand time, the late 90s after they took over, that everything was that there was no crime and anything else. Well, there was no crime because, again, the such brutal force of keeping people in line and subject to the interpretations of the Taliban to the law of Sharia law was basically suffocating a country. It's again, this is back to where they are and where they were. And it's sad to see this is taking place in the way that it's taking place. Was it predictable? Yes. Although we were told we'll be able to keep them in line. They're going to be better this time. Whatever you want to say, from the White House press podium, we heard that we have the ability to encourage them to be a part of the world stage. Well, undoubtedly that went away because they're back to where they were, but they couldn't control it. There was no way they could control it. Once they left the equipment, once everything gone in the administration, they had no actual function and no actual real leverage that they were going to use on the Taliban. How do you sanction a country that has nothing to start with? The best way to have done this was to have kept the Taliban out as long as possible, if not forever. But that would have required, again, probably longer term resource allocation than we were willing to have. But at the end of the day, we've now, what have we gained? We've gained another place in which the Taliban imposing their will and brutality upon the Afghan people. We have a country that has went backwards in time again. We have a country that is now believed by most intelligence organizations to be a festering ground for Al-Qaeda, ISA, and others as they really freely to operate in Afghanistan, just as we saw before 9/11. And the sad part about this is now the Taliban actually has more equipment than they did beforehand because of the stuff that we had already sold to the nationals and others who just left it abandoned, and we did not destroy it before we left. So as you look at this, again, this is I just bring this out for more than anything here at the the holiday season, Christmas season, is not from a sense of, I told you so, but although we did, is a sense of just to be in prayer for the people of Afghanistan, because the country is not better off. In fact, the country is a lot worse. Next up, Kristen Sinema. Kristen Sinema out of Arizona, senator, came to Congress with her a number of years ago. She came in 2012. She was elected in 2012. We all were sworn in 2013. She has always been a free spirit. She has always been one who is willing to buck the system when she thought the system needed bucking, and it affected her and actually played into her favor. Kristen's always been one who found the opportunity, took the opportunity, and she was her own best salesman. Lately, she is now back into the sales arena, and she's basically selling herself again in the sense of promoting herself. And she's doing so in the sense that she did a smart thing. She looked at the Arizona election. She is trying to portray herself as a centrist. And when it comes to elections and it comes to primaries, that centrist mentality, whether you're on the Democrat side or the Republican side, doesn't play very well in primaries. She just watched the last election happen in Arizona. Mark Kelly who was a liberal Democrat, won, and she's looking at having to go up in 2 years in her own next election cycle. So what did Kristen do? She took a self-evaluation. She said, don't think I'm going to have a lot of luck in the Democratic primary here. In fact, a lot of the polling was showing that she wasn't going to go anywhere. And in doing so, she made the decision to be an independent. Now, this throws up a lot of issues. And for those of you out there wondering, does this still give the Democrats the control of the Senate? Yes, because she has said she will accept her committee assignments from the Democrats, but she just will not have lunch with them, which is what the caucus meets. But she's not been doing that even when she declared to be a Democrat. So the Democrats will keep the 51-seat majority, but they're still going to have to deal with Kristen Sinema when it comes to long-term votes. Where this is going to play long-term, however, Kristen Sinema, is this. Is the political play, which it has become nothing more than a crass political play, going to work in the state of Arizona? Can she make it to the general election in 2024 and be able to quell a Republican challenge, be able to quell a Democrat challenge, and get enough votes to win the election? And I think that's the whole purpose of what she's doing. Now, granted, she's made a lot of the thoughts on, I don't want to be a part of, where it's the party and making the decisions and that I just go on. I believe that every member has that ability. That interestingly enough, in Washington, D.C., if you're an incumbent, you can, for the most part, vote how you want to. There are going to be certain votes that are going to be weighed more than others, and still the party is going to keep you in favor, because unless the party can replace you and there's enough political will to do it, which on both sides, Democrat and Republican, there's typically not, then you're going to be okay with the party. You're going to be okay with your senatorial committee or your congressional committees, the national parties that do this. Why? Because they want to keep the seat. To simply say you're leaving this because you don't like, you're leaving the Democratic Party because you don't like how partisan it has become, I really question, again, why that is the excuse when the reality looks far, far more political. Kirsten Sinema's been able to do what she wants to do. She now just has to pay the price for what she wants to do. And has she explained that enough to the Arizona voters? Obviously not. So she's made this decision to go forward in taking this step. It's going to be fun to watch because she's not going to back down. I like her personally, disagree with her on most all of her policies. I mean, she's still almost a 90% voter with the Biden, but she's teamed with Joe Manchin on things such as not overturning the filibuster, other plays that have gone on there. And she has tried to govern from a left perspective, not a conservative perspective, but a left perspective. And for that, look, good for her. The reality is, though, in this political environment, if you make those governing choices, you may pay a political price for it. Her answer to those political prices: no problem. I'm leaving the Democrats. I'm going to become an independent. Only time will tell if this very political move by Kirsten Sinema will play off in the electoral victory that she may look for in 2024. Before we go today on the podcast, as we sat down to tape this a few days, it'll be for you a few days after, Mike Leach, the coach of Mississippi State football, passed away. He died of a heart attack in Mississippi over the past couple of days. Mike Leach was one of those coaches that really brought joy to me to watch college football. He loved his players. He loved where he was at, and he did not buy in to the hype surrounding college football. In today's, you listen to it, we've talked about it here on the podcast with Coach Gailey and others, and it's all about, the NIL deals. It's all about the transfer portals. When you've got players who are literally transferring for the third time in their career to go play somewhere else, we've got a problem with the transfer portal. We got a problem with NIL money. You've got a lot of issues out there. And Coach Leach was the breath of fresh air, if you would, in college football. His teams were always good. They were always tough to beat, but he didn't take himself seriously. He knew his teams were 8-4, 9-3, 10-2 kind of teams, and yet they would make bowls. They would make life hard, and he would recruit good kids, and they would go on, many of them, to play at a higher level. But he never lost his sense of humor. He never lost his edge, and I can't think of a better way to end the podcast today then for playing for you just a few of the Mike Leach famous moments, at least funny moments if you want to. So as we get ready to leave the podcast today, my prayers go to Mike Leach's family and for all that they are going through right now and the tragic death at 61 years of age. Mike Leach, a great coach, one who just his air raid style, going back from Texas, days in Texas to Washington State to Mississippi State. His friends down in, as I was hearing today, in Key West, all over the country, everybody enjoyed the quirkiness, the down-home humor and love that Mike Leach showed to his players and to those around him. Our prayers are with the family and the whole Mississippi State football program during this time. There are very few that you can say are true characters. There's very few that can say that they sort of broke the mold when they made this one. Mike Leach was one of those that they broke the mold. And I'm glad that I was around to watch, to listen, and to share the laughter in Mike Leach's life. So as we go out on the podcast today, here is some clips that will bring back the fun and the specialness of Mike Leach. God bless you. We'll see you next time.
The weddings. I'm in the middle of planning one right now. Do you have any advice for me?
Who are you marrying?
His name is Trevor.
Okay, yeah, well, I'll have to just set up a meeting and I'll talk to him. Okay, so where's Trevor from?
He's from Florida.
What does Trevor do for a living?
He works in sports as well, covers football.
He does what?
He covers football as well.
Really? Well, I don't know. We'll keep a close eye on it, but whatever you and Trevor decide, I would kind of keep it on the down low, which you failed to do that. Trevor was probably planning to, but you didn't. So go ahead and don't say anything else about it, but as soon as the season's over, or even an off week, go elope. Trust me on that. Go elope. Because basically every female in the family is going to terrorize you guys until it's over. Once it's over, I mean, they'll be upset for a few days, but it'll be over. And then, you know, you cruise along, have a happy marriage, have a happy life.
I'll pass along the message. Thanks, Coach. Congrats on the win.
Trevor, unless he's crazy, is totally on my side. And trust me on this. If Trevor doesn't have the sense to do that, tell him to call me, because, I mean, he needs to do trust. I've told all my kids, I'll give you $10,000 extra if you elope. So far, they haven't done it, but I would, too.
I'll have him call you for sure.
All right.
Thanks, Coach.
Hey folks, MyPillow is excited to bring to you their biggest bedding sale ever, and just in time for Christmas. For a limited time, you're going to get the Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98, a set of pillowcases for only $9.98, and rejuvenate your bed with a MyPillow mattress topper for as low as $99.99. $99.99. Get a mattress pillow topper. Look, they come in all sizes. They got all kinds of stuff. Blankets. They've got duvets. They've got quilts. They got comforters. They got body pillows. They got bolster pillows. They got all that big discounts. And also, they're extending their money-back guarantee for Christmas until March 1, 2023, making them the perfect gift for your friends, your family, and for everyone you know. Folks, and just from a personal note here, I have the Giza Dream Sheets. They're on my bed right now. Slept on them last night. Some of the best sheets that we and Lisa and I have ever owned. They are worth, I mean, at this price, they're a steal. My wife and I have bought bed sheets, linens at much higher cost. It's supposedly much higher quality. These from MyPillow are at the highest of quality, and at a price like this, you can't beat it. So go now to MyPillow.com, use promo code Collins, COLLINS, or call 1-800-986-3994, and you'll get huge discounts on all the MyPillow bedding products, including the Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98, and get all your shopping done while qualities last. And remember, put in that promo code Collins for these discounts.